Let us bring in Pat Pagano and take a look at this forecast. Good morning, Pat.
And good morning, Marshall and everybody. It is going to be a nice dry weekend, and we deserve it.
And
So
and,
there,
and that's good
any,
because
yes,
we have a bunch of September 11th ceremonies that are taking
right.
place all day on Saturday here in North Canaan, and then a big parade in South County, Massachusetts, and other events. So you've got good weather to go out and at one time, at least during this weekend. Remember what happened back on September 11th, 2001.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. I will in a second. Um, Today you'll have sun and patches of clouds. It'll be breezy. You'll notice the wind, which will be like 25, maybe 30 miles an hour this afternoon. Mid 70s. Tonight will be clear and cool. I'm thinking near 50. So some of our cooler valleys are going to drop into the 40s. And then sunny, 80 on Saturday, sun and clouds, mid 80s Sunday, and partly cloudy, more humid, middle 80s Monday. So above normal temperatures. I think it's very interesting how tomorrow's weather will be very similar to the weather that occurred on that ridiculous day 20 years ago. And because it was really just a beautiful day. And I always wondered, even back then, how did they know what the weather was going to be? Because think about it, Marshall. Had the weather been bad, let's say, visibilities were low, and it was IFR, instrument flight rules, it would not have been as easy to guide two planes into the towers. Um, so how did they know the weather was going to be so nice? I guess they must have had um, meteorologists working on that and giving them the thumbs up because if you recall, that day was really a beautiful, beautiful, bright blue uh, September day.
Well, and they also picked they picked every plane, one of the first planes that were off the tarmacs for the day. It was one of those days where when a major disaster happens, a lot of things have to line up for it to happen. And no one up until that point, plane hijackings were not people hijacking planes and turning them into moving missiles. They were just people hijacking planes and taking them to other destinations like that. So we all learned a terrible lesson on that date, and a lot of changes have been made for the good that have protected us, but a lot of changes have been made that have taken a lot of our so-called freedoms away. I always just say, like, if you think when you pick up your telephone at home, whether it's wired, whether it's your cell phone, if you think that you aren't being closely followed, you're wrong. It's just the way that life turned after that day.
Hmm. You're absolutely right. Um, Awful day. I still remember, you know, that day watching events unfold and shaking my head and thinking to myself, how could this ever happen in this great country of ours? That was that was my biggest question. How could this possibly slip through the cracks?
And you know
But
what's interesting about it is that the emergency alert system in our country totally failed that day. It wasn't enacted once. Can you believe that? Our emergency alert system was not enacted once in that day.
why is that, Marshall?
There was just because there was confusion. There was, people weren't ready for it. The system itself has had flaws, and if it wasn't for some lucky flight controller who decided to ground every flight, and the Pentagon, any plane that was left in the air was going to be target to shot down if they didn't come down. There probably were other planes, in my opinion, that were set to go. I do believe that. I think there were other planes, and and because we shut down the skies and planes had to land, um, uh, and you know the time that they hit the World Trade Center, thank God it wasn't an hour later, because instead of 2 to 3 thousand people, there would have been 5 to 10,000 people dead.
That's true. And, the other interesting fact about it is that the mayor at that time of New York City was Giuliani. Now, he had spent, I don't know if you know this, but he had spent billions of dollars on the command center. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, and it was right next to where everything collapsed.
It was in the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is one of the reasons why there was no communication.
It was,
So,
but the rest of the country should have, there should have been
alerts.
there should have been alerts, emergency alerts, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I can
I
remember.
agree.
I can remember after that happened, the following weekend, going out and covering a high school football game, which was held on the coastline, and it was so eerie in that period not to see a plane in the sky for, well, I think it was at least 2 weeks. There wasn't a
Yeah.
plane in the sky.
Yeah.
It's something that will stay with me, and always it just one of those days that in my life, along with the assassination of John Kennedy, along with Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy being killed. That this just stays. It just stays with you. I mean, there's nothing you can do but pray and hope, and just imagine the families that were broken apart. Were broken apart on that
Yeah.
day. It was just
Yeah.
an amazing day. And what makes it even worse is that after it happened, this country came together for a brief second, where we were all joined as Americans, and the world came behind us. The world, most of the world, came behind us, and somehow, some way, we managed to turn all that around. We managed to turn that all around, and we are now a divided nation. The world doesn't know what to make of our democracy anymore. It's a watershed day in the life of America.
It really is. It really is. Yeah. Things have. You're right. Things have changed dramatically in the last 20 years. There's no doubt about it.
And social media hasn't helped it at all. And everybody having the ability to have quality video in their palm of their hands to catch people doing things, and everything's just totally different now. And who knows? Maybe it'll take some sort of big crisis to get everything back. But you know what? The pendulum swings both way, Pat. It does. It goes. It's sooner or later everything goes from one side to another, and it'll happen again. But I really hope people do pass along what happened on that day, because there's people around that have no idea.
That's correct.
They weren't around.
Yep.
They have no idea how
Right.
big of a day that was.
Right. Right. Yeah. Right. Anybody who is 25 years or younger has absolutely no idea what had gone on that day. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
You know, you can compare that to the people in Afghanistan. Anybody who is 20 years old or younger, they're in for a big surprise. What Afghanistan's going to be like, because they haven't lived under the Taliban. You know,
Right.
it's amazing when you sit back and you look at things like this. But here we are, though, as a country. We're still together, a bit tattered and a bit torn. And once again, I hope a day like this, where people go and remember what happened and the people that really saved the day, this is one day of them all right now that people really should concentrate on, and spread the word to their children, their grandchildren, and never let it be forgotten.
Yep. Nicely put.
So you've got a weekend coming up where you're back to filming.
Well, tomorrow I have a christening. Then I'll shoot to the lake Sunday, and we'll be filming Sunday into Monday. Jamie Simpson will have his debut with you on Monday, and you'll report back to me on Tuesday how he did.
Absolutely right. I will give him a report card.
Yeah, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Nice
All
guy.
right. Well, I want you to have a good weekend, Pat, and a good Monday, and we will speak to you on Tuesday.
Well, do the same, Marshall. Be safe, everybody.
All right, take care, Pat.
Bye-bye.
Pat Pagano this morning in the Weather Center with a check on our tri-state forecast here on Robin Hood Radio.